Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Welcome to today's Grey Market Blast, where the glamorous Angie Setzer will be providing a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. It is, what day is it today? It's Wednesday, it's hump day, 7th of May, all day. But before we crack on, I'll get the legals out of the way. So as usual, nothing discussed on this Spaces session constitutes trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ, myself, Mr. Ryan Paisley, and of course the glamorous Mrs. Angie Setzer. Happy Wednesday.
Hola, dude. I was over here screaming, it's hump day, man. Hump day. Wednesday. For those of you who can't properly spell like myself, I still use the...
Oh,
Do you do
absolutely.
that too? Yeah.
No, absolutely.
I still use, like, my mom used to work with me on spelling bee studying, and, like, there's certain things like Halloween, tomorrow, certain words I always struggled with that, like, now I'll nail. But I can't spell beginning the first time I try, no matter what. Like, how odd is that?
But you get there in the end. Hey, ba-bum. Sorry. Sorry, if I just annoyed you and you've disappeared. Have you fallen off your chair laughing? Where's she gone? Hang on. Hello? Have you pulled your microphone out? Do I know any jokes whilst we wait for Angie? No clean ones. Where's she gone? Do I know any music? Right, let's re-add her as a co-host. Dum dum dum. Co-host invite sent. Come on, Angie, come back to me. I need.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes. What happened?
Awesome. Sorry, guys. Sorry. We had a problem. I feel like Mr. Brown this morning when he lost his notes.
Yes.
He panicked.
I thought it was my joke was so funny you fell off your chair.
That's what it was. I was really sad I missed it. So it was hilarious. I loved it. Welcome to my travels. I am on the road this morning. About once a month, I head to a farm on a Wednesday. So you get to travel with me, but I should have good service the entire time. So welcome. Happy Wednesday. Let's try this again. We're doing it live. So let's go. But what should we talk about? There's not much. I mean, nothing has happened in the last 24 hours to speak of. So here we sit. I would say China is the first thing to probably touch on here. And we did have the confirmation yesterday, basically late yesterday, that we will be having official negotiations with China here this weekend. We'll be meeting in Switzerland, I believe, and having the first round, basically, Besant and Mr. Jameson Greer. Our U.S. trade representative will be there, and they're kind of saying right now their goal is de-escalation, and basically to set the framework for the conversation that we're going to be having as we push ahead. And so the market's obviously reacting positively to that. It's a good thing. At least it shows that we're not going to continue to poke each other's eyes out to a certain extent, though, it is interesting to note that China has that 131 product list of exempted things and, some of these other factors at play that we're pretending, and I don't want to say we're pretending because there will be obvious effects from the hiccups and from all of these things that'll show up here as we move forward. But I don't know. I feel like everyone, to a certain extent, is clutching a lot of their pearls about soybean sales and farm stuff and things with China a little too early. And so it'll be good to have this conversation, hopefully good to have this conversation. I feel like sending Besant and Greer especially, because Greer was instrumental in the first round of trade negotiations, the phase 1 stuff. And so to have Greer there and in attendance and have them meeting with China's lead economic advisor, all good things. We'll see what happens. We did get China stimulus too. You saw that. You mentioned that overnight here. China, the one thing that is of interest, though, is that out of the 10 things that they're offering, all of them basically are meant to increase money flow into the economy, which is the point of stimulus. However,
also I would just some of the measures are more focused on getting money into the stock market. I think they have to differentiate some of that. Some of that was very much focused on freeing up the ability for companies to just buy back and also put money into the stocks rather than people's pockets.
Yes. And so that's the one thing I think that's super duper important in this. And one of the things that, like, if you pay attention to some of the conversations from like China's Beige Book and some of these other folks that, I lean on a little bit on, what is actually happening in China. They're saying that the biggest fault or the biggest factor at play right now that's really limiting China's economic growth is consumer confidence. And none of the things that you see released overnight really would do much to stabilize consumer confidence.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's
Exactly. It's
great
not.
that you can get a loan, but if you don't, you know what I mean? If you don't want to
Yeah,
risk your capital in spending money, then okay, it's one of those things. Interesting to note though, tech, science, agriculture, and you will see that, I feel like, continuously from China here, where all of their pushes are going to be tech, science, agriculture, and that's really what they're working on with their their low employment rate and some of these other things. Is there anything there that you saw China conversation wise, or anything that you think we should
we did
highlight?
have a. We did literally about 30 seconds ago.
Okay.
Um, we had not well, I saw it 30 seconds ago at least. Apparently, one of the Chinese government kind of controlled media outlets have posted that China has room for further triple R cut. Obviously, that's reserve ratio rate
Yes.
of at least two more cuts, which would bring it to 2.5 percentage points. That's according to some like industry insiders, so government sources, put it that way. So we could see more triple R cuts on the horizon. Again, it's a bit of an odd one because
Yes.
they've done this. They kind of announced all of this a matter of hours after agreeing to meet Besant in Switzerland.
Yes.
Um, to be clear as well, China have been very, very vocal in saying we're doing this because the USA asked for a meeting. This
They're
isn't on.
asking and they're showing signs that they will reduce their tariffs. They did say that, that part too, which is super
Yeah,
important, I feel like, is
yeah,
that they've
exactly.
shown signs.
And China have said our position has not changed. We're doing
Yes.
this at the bequest of the USA. The fact that they've also come out and done these quite significant for them anyway, quite significant policy announcements overnight. It's kind of what you would do if you were expecting this to play out for quite a long time. So I think
Yes.
anyone who's looking for a kind of Monday, we're best friends, there's no trade tariffs anymore, I think you're very much mistaken. I think this is potentially as well. I think there's an argument to be made that given how the kind of Trump's people can kind of wind people up sometimes, it's not impossible that they come away from this on Monday in a worse position.
Thanks.
Well, I look back to Zelensky in the White House. What was meant to be a
Right.
nice, friendly chat, and then they walked away hating each other.
Well, that's my favorite part about yesterday with Carney is he's like, we're not going to do what you think I'm going to do, which is just flip out on you. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of funny
Yeah,
where he's like, we aren't going to have this contentious sort of meeting again. I promise. Like, I almost feel like, the folks ahead of time were like, okay, remember, he's a guest. We got to be nice. Like,
no, this
it's
is
one of those
exactly it.
things.
This is exactly it. So
You
yeah, I
know,
think anyone looking for a quick solution on Monday, like some nice positive. Well, we might get positive headlines overnight.
yeah.
Sunday Globex open, but also be prepared that there is possibility we get some negative headlines out of this.
The beauty part is, I would say there's like a 30% chance of positive, or maybe less than that. And like, realistically speaking, we're probably going to walk away with an understanding of framework on how the conversation is going to work going forward, and that's fine. It's
Yeah,
progress.
it's a
Though
meeting
if we do walk away and the tariffs have been dropped on both sides, I think it's very clear that the economic turmoil that has resulted from these,
Yeah,
the de facto embargo, maybe is
exactly.
impacting both economies more than they wanted to
Yeah,
admit. But anyway,
exactly.
we'll see that, and the China stimulus thing will be supportive, but it's really not China stimulus of consumption. It's more China stimulus of, here's some more money for you to spend, please do, and also support our stock market. And so we'll see. We've got further trade talks too. A lot of people want to make a lot to do about the UK and India's trade deal, like, oh, the UK got a deal before the US did. But I think they've been working on that for a hot minute too. It's not like it just
Yeah,
started
like
on
years,
last
years,
Tuesday.
years,
Yeah, like,
years, and years and years.
I feel like context is so important now, and
Oh God,
everyone
yeah,
has just left it out. Like, they're just like, well, the UK is doing what the US can't do. You guys, they've been working on it forever. Like, everyone needs to
yeah.
freaking take a chill
Well, to
pill
be
and
honest,
do a little research.
we've probably been working on it since we gave India back to the Indians.
Right?
Let's
That's
just
it.
be honest. But yeah,
Something to do with tea
yeah,
initially
like you
from like,
said,
Yeah.
context and the full story is not glamorous, but it's not Hollywood enough. People just want the headlines, right?
Yeah. And so we are working, speaking of UK, the US and UK, everyone kind of indicated yesterday that the UK might be the first one to come up with the trade deal with the US. It looks like we'll see some rollbacks of tariffs on some agricultural products and things like that. I really don't see that being a needle mover for grains, unfortunately, unless you guys start like really bulking up on your corn imports or whatever. But it's a good thing. It's a sign of positive trade.
Yeah.
In
We did
India and
say
the Go
we
ahead.
did say
Yes.
to coin a very London phrase or UK phrase. These trade agreements could be like buses. You wait for ages for one, and then they all come along at once. So we
That's
just need.
probably what it is. Speaking of UK phrases, I'm going to start using bits and bobbles in my day to day conversation
Bits
after
and bobs.
listening to
Bits and
you.
bobs.
Bits and bobs, yes. After
Bits
you
and bobs.
listening to you and Mr. Brown this morning, I'm like, I need that in my everyday life. But anyway, other trade deals. We'll be watching to see the US, and like you said, it could be like buses. Like you've got UK lined up, the EU supposedly presenting their package. Again, phrasing, but they are. And so they're going to be doing that. They have come out and said, hey, we got 100 billion worth of products that we're willing to tariff on top of the 21 billion we already threw out there. And the 21 billion does include corn and a few other things. So we do want to see the EU kind of work on that, because we have seen an uptick in European Union corn purchases, mostly because Ukraine had a really poor crop last year. There's not much in the way of competition there, but we have been able to sell, into Spain and a couple other countries that have helped to bolster our export outlook for corn. So we'll be watching a lot of those.
Just on the EU front, we did see
Yes,
this
please.
morning the EU threatened tariffs on Boeing as well. So obviously,
Yes, that was part of what they had included into the list or whatever. Like, we'll get
yeah,
your stinky little jets too.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
yeah, that's and so we'll see what that conversation looks like. The one thing that's really interesting, and this kind of comes into the geopolitical front, but all of this, like we've talked about forever and ever, is just a tangled web of interpersonal relations and history to a certain extent. But you did have the EU. So one of the things talking about trade, right? The European Union and China have been kind of in conversation. There's this big talk of China courting the EU. They've rolled back the sanctions that they put on their parliament members here 4 or 5 years ago, whatever. Ooh, EU, you want to work with us, China? We're free trade people. We love you. We're going to, like kiss and make up. Let's go. But then the spokesperson from the European Commission came out overnight or early this morning and said that China's actually enabling Russia in the war in
yeah,
Ukraine, which is accurate, right? And so it makes you wonder how, you're going to see a real sort of hug, kiss, push the US out sort of approach by the European Union, when
yeah,
really they're a little angry about the Russia Ukraine situation.
yeah,
So it is one of those things that, you really just watch, because we do have the Pakistan India situation. India did launch some attacks on Pakistan's territory overnight, or at least in the Pakistan's claimed Kashmir area. And so that's kind of on the brink of not doing so good. China is a big supporter of Pakistan. The US and India obviously have their relation. No one knows if it's going to affect us there. Like, we
yeah.
just have all of these things that we're paying attention to. Do they really impact grain flow? Not necessarily in a big way. You know what I mean? Like, overall, is this a big mover directly when it comes to physical supply? Not necessarily, but it has impacts on currency and relation and trade flows and logistics and all of these things going forward. So it'll be something we watch.
Well, and this is it, right? Because we did, yeah, we said, well, funny enough, on the India Pakistan story last week, we sat here and said, you know what, it's going to be one of those situations where it's not going to really move the dial for agricultural markets, but it's one of those that it's not really important until it's really important. So you need to have it on
Yes,
the radar.
it could have a huge impact on just relations in general. The China-US trade conversation. Like we talked about, the European Union China trade conversation. Like, there's just a lot of things that are at stake, you could say, and it's just interesting to see the militants and some of these terrorists and things like that, and other countries that are pointing to them as a reason for whatever action here. So we did see that happen overnight. Pakistan's promised to respond. Negatively, they did shoot down some fighter jets. So everyone's like, maybe that was the response. I doubt it, but I'm not an expert in those relations there. But We'll see how that plays out. Otherwise, we saw ethanol exports for the month of March. Again, absolutely massive. Last year was a record for ethanol exports, and we outpaced throughout the first quarter of 2025. We've outpaced last year's ethanol exports by 19%. And so we're just exporting ethanol like hell won't have it, which is great, because we have had some concerns over gasoline demand and some of these other things. We really want to keep pushing renewable fuels out into the global marketplace. It helps to bolster domestic demand here for us. So that's a positive sign. It's been one of those things that helps support margins, even when stocks were felt super duper high and somewhat burdensome and some of these other things. And so yeah, we'll just be watching. Today will be all about trade headlines and whether or not we feel comfortable about what happens with China. Saturday and Sunday is a long ass way away. So we might get it'll feel like it'll be here in an instant, but from trading standpoint, it's dog minutes. Like it's 7 minutes for every minute. Is how it'll feel in the market. And it's going to be difficult, I feel like, to kind of maintain a lot of strength just on that much optimism 72 hours out. But we'll see. It's a positive sign. And like you said, hopefully we'll see a bunch of trade deals come into play. Trump's got that massive announcement, which scares the shit out of me. But yeah, we'll see.
My money is on you lot finally grabbing hold of the metric system, but we'll see.
That's what. Hey, I can convert bushels to tons like nobody else. So that's about as good as we can get. You need me to tell you what a metric ton and what that means for bushels, girl. I got you. Anything else? Absolutely not. Kilometers per hour? What do you mean? I don't know what that is.
I'm quite good at drinking pints, and that's about it.
I have no. Yeah, a pint's a pound the world around. That's all I know. Okay, that's all I got.
Well, perfect. Well, Angie, I know you're in the car, so I don't want to kind of be the reason why you kind of career off. So I'm going to call it there, and we can chat later. But
that
Angie,
sounds good.
Thank you so much, as always, listeners. We know we always say it, but we really do appreciate you tuning in. Whatever you're doing today, stay safe, keep it tight, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.
Have a good one.